Hello. Today we're continuing on with section 2.2. We're going to be finding the exact value of expressions, and then we're also going to be using the calculator to find an approximate value. If you'll please write down what I have up on the screen right now. It says find the exact value of each expression. And there's your first problem. Remember, at any time if I'm going too quickly, just hit the pause button. So number 1 says sine of 45 degrees times the cosine of 180 degrees. Now when it says exact value, that means you can't just pop it into the calculator and get an answer. Exact value means no decimals. So if I want an exact value of sine of 45, well, think, where could I find that? That's right, the unit circle. So the sine of 45, sine is the y value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the sine of 45 with the square root of 2 over 2. These are right up against each other, which implies multiplication, times the cosine of 180. So I'll look at my unit circle. I'll find 180 degrees. Cosine is the x value, so that's a -1. Now if I just multiply those two together, square root of 2 over 2 times -1 is just negative square root of 2 over 2. And that's it. Let's take a look at the next one. This one looks way harder, but it really isn't. Same idea here. You're going to just look these up on the unit circle. The tangent of pi over 4. So here's pi over 4. Tangent is y over x. Well, think about it. What's anything divided by itself? 1. Minus the sine of 3 pi over 2. So I need to find 3 pi over 2, which is way down here. I'm looking for sine, which is the y value, so -1. Now notice I brought this minus down because now I have a -1. A common error here is to not bring that negative down, that minus, and then just have 1 minus 1 and get 0. However, you realize when you have a double negative, maybe go positive, and 1 plus 1 is 2. Let's look at the next one. This one has a secant and a squared. So this one looks like a good time. So first I have secant of pi over 4 squared. So I look at my unit circle. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I have to flip this square root of 2 over 2. So I'll have 2 over square root of 2 squared plus the cosecant of pi over 2. Here's pi over 2. Cosecant's reciprocal is sine. Now, a lot of times people want to do 1 over 0, but that 0 is not involved. We're just looking at the y value, and if you flip 1, you just get 1. So here I'm going to get 1. Now I need to tidy this up a little bit. I'm just going to square these separately. 2 squared is 4. The square root of 2 squared is 2. Remember, the square root of a number times the square root of itself is just that number, plus 1. Then 4 over 2 is 2. Plus 1 equals 3. So these really aren't too bad. If you run into a problem maybe that has something like 2 times the cosine of 180 degrees, all you would do is look up cosine of 180, which happens to be -1, and then you'd multiply it by that 2 in front. So if you come up with something like that, just be aware that's how you would do that problem. So that's the exact value part. Now we're going to take a little look at the decimal approximation. So go ahead and write this down. And again, if I go through too quickly, hit pause so you can write all this down. I'm not going to spend a lot of time just standing here waiting for you to write this dead air. So if you need to pause, then just pause. Here it says use a calculator to find the approximate value of, and then it says 2 decimal places. So when you read things like calculator or approximation, that's obviously when you're going to be using the calculator. Now notice here it says cosine of 48 degrees. What you have to keep in mind here, for the first time, we have to pay attention to the mode. I would definitely write that down somewhere. The mode is very important. If you clear your memory and do second plus 7, 1, 2, the mode, which is this key right here to the right of the blue second key, the mode automatically resets to radians every time you clear the memory. Now this problem, you can see, is in degrees. So I want to have it in degrees. So again, here's what you're doing. Pressing the mode key, going down to degree. Now press the enter key. You have to press the enter so this one darkens. Now if I press clear, I'm in degree mode now. So I can just type in the cosine of 48, and you don't need the degree symbol. Press enter. And it says round to 2 decimal places. So that would just be 0.67. Now you may want to make yourself a little note here that this needs to be in degree mode. The next one says cosecant of 21 degrees. Now we're still in degree mode. That won't change unless I clear the memory or I go into mode and take it out of there. The problem is there's a sine, there's a cosine, there's a tangent, but there's no cosecant mode. Cosecant's reciprocal, if you remember, is sine. Some people want to go ahead and use that little inverse that's above the cosine in blue. That's not what we're looking for here. What we have to do here is rewrite this. Remember, it's the reciprocal. So we need to write it as 1 over the sine of 21 degrees. So that's a reciprocal function. So 1 over the sine of 21. This one's also in degree. Now just type that in your calculator. 1 divided by sine of 21. Again, don't want the degree symbol. 2 decimal places would be 2.79. Then the last one on here, notice this is back in radians. So this mode needs to be in radians. So you're going to go back to your calculator. You're going to go to mode. Come down here to radians. Press enter to darken the radian. Then you can clear out of there. I'm going to clear the whole screen. Now it says tangent of pi over 12. So just type in tangent. The pi key is above the caret key in blue. And there's your answer. Again, 2 decimal places will be 0.27. So that's it for today's lesson. The only thing I want to go over a little bit will be some of the math from this first part, 1 through 3. Everyone pretty much does okay with just plugging in the values, but sometimes the computational part can kind of trip people up a little bit. So I just want to go through a couple problems that you might see that you might have some difficulty with, and hopefully this will keep that from being difficult for you. So these are just kind of some example problems that you'll want to jot down. So the first one, just have square root of 2 over 2 plus 1/2. Now, when you add fractions, you need a common denominator. Well, they already have a common denominator, and that's 2. The problem is I can't add these 2 on top. It would be like x plus 1. It would just stay x plus 1. So this is going to stay as the square root of 2 plus 1. And that's really all you can do with that problem. Now, the thing is, if you look in the back of the book to check your answer, this is how they will write it. There's really a 1 in front here. They'll pull the 1/2 out, and they'll write it like this. These mean the same thing. You writing this answer is perfectly acceptable to me. But again, when you look in the back of the book, you'll see it written this way. So be aware of that. Let's look at another one. Something else you might run into when you're plugging those numbers in. Remember, when you add or subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So 1 is the same thing as 2 over 2. Because that would give me the common denominator. So I looked at this number and said, well, I'm just going to rewrite this one as something over itself. So I wanted it to be 2. Now it's similar to the first one we just talked about. The 2 comes along. These 2 can't go together. So it just comes straight across. And again, if you look in the back of the book, they will write the answer like this. So just be aware of that. Then the last kind I want to talk about is when they don't have a common denominator. So if you just think back to your days of elementary school, like that, a common denominator here would be 6. So you have to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6, so you have to multiply 1 by 2. Here you need to multiply 2 by 3 to get 6, so multiply the 1. And then 2 minus 3 would be negative 1 over 6. So that's a little flashback to elementary school. Now, in pre-cal, it might be written like this. So again, they don't have a common denominator, but they're going to need one. The numbers on the top are the same, just like they were up here. So again, we're still going to get the common denominator of 6. What did I have to multiply this by? 2. So I need to multiply the top by 2. What do I have to multiply this by? 3. So I need to multiply the top by 3. Now my common denominator is 6. This time I can subtract these two because they both have a square root of 3. So 2 minus square root of 3 is negative 1, which you don't need to write, square root of 3. Now remember, you can't reduce that or cancel that because that has a square root on it, and that does not. All right, now it comes to the fun part where I give you your assignment. Remember to always be writing out the problems, checking your odd answers, showing your work. So you're going to go to page 105. You're going to do 19 to 37 odd, 57 to 67 odd. And then I have a worksheet for you. It's called Worksheet 2. You only need to do the one side that says reduction of angles. That's from a previous lesson. And that'll be 1 to 17. All right, again, if you need to go back over any of this, feel free to do that. If you need any help, please do ask.